Imagine putting together the, legal fight of the decade, demanding more than $100 billion over the future control of artificial intelligence.
Only to lose because someone basically forgot to check a calendar.
I mean, it is honestly wild. Welcome to episode 511 of AI Brief.
We have an incredibly packed deep dive for you today.
We really do. We are going to unpack the highly anticlimactic end to that massive courtroom showdown between Elon Musk and OpenAI. Plus, we are dissecting Cursor's massive leap in coding efficiency.
Which is completely rewriting the economics of software development, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. And we are tracking a wave of industry shifts, stretching all the way from Meta's corporate restructuring to Apple's latest privacy maneuvers.
The contrast in today's deep dive is just, truly striking. I mean, we are looking at a landscape where the absolute bleeding edge of technological progress models that are fundamentally reshaping global labor can suddenly collide head-on with the most mundane courtroom calendar technicalities.
It perfectly captures the whiplash of following this industry right now.
It really does.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The legal battle that everyone has been watching for the last 3 weeks just came to a grinding halt.
A total halt.
Elon Musk's lawsuit against OpenAI, Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, and Microsoft has been officially dismissed. We are talking about a trial that featured highly publicized testimonies, leaked private messages, and financial claims exceeding $100 billion.
But the jury's decision was unanimous, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the actual allegations.
Exactly. They simply ruled that the case was filed years too late. The statute of limitations had just, expired.
That legal timer is often the silent killer of massive corporate lawsuits. To understand the tension here and why this matters to you as an observer of this space, we have to look at the conflicting narratives presented in that courtroom.
Because it really is a fascinating clash of narratives.
It is. The lawsuit alleged that Altman and Brockman effectively stole a charity by shifting OpenAI from a pure nonprofit research lab into a capped profit structure.
And, for context, a capped profit structure means investors are promised a maximum return on their money.
Like 100 times their investment, for instance.
Sure, exactly. But anything generated beyond that cap is supposed to flow back into the nonprofit's original mission. Musk's argument was that this structure fundamentally compromised the original mission for financial gain.
On the other side, OpenAI's attorneys presented evidence arguing that Musk himself had backed a for-profit structure early on.
And that he pushed for total control of the organization.
Plus, they argued this lawsuit was only initiated after he launched his own rival company, xAI, in 2023.
And because of that statute of limitations, the jury decided that Musk had known about OpenAI's structural changes for years before finally deciding to sue. The clock just ran out on him.
Which also means Musk's claim against Microsoft, accusing them of aiding OpenAI through their multi-billion-dollar investments, was dismissed alongside everything else.
Though Musk is already posting on X, calling the ruling a mere calendar technicality and vowing to appeal. So the underlying arguments never actually got a definitive verdict from the jury.
What is fascinating here is the massive unresolved question left in the wake of this dismissal. This is undoubtedly a swift legal victory for OpenAI.
It frees them from immediate courtroom liabilities, for sure.
But it completely fails to answer the structural question hanging over the entire sector. Who should actually control a nonprofit AI giant once the technology starts generating billions of dollars in commercial value?
The trial was supposed to provide a legal precedent for that exact scenario.
And because of the legal clock, that fundamental question remains entirely unanswered. The entire industry is operating without a clear legal framework on this issue.
So while the billionaires are fighting in court over who gets to control the profits of these massive frontier models, the actual developers on the ground are quietly eroding those profit margins.
Which is the real story here.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Cursor just released Composer 2.5. This is their upgraded in-house coding model, which is built on Moonshot's Kimi K2.5 architecture.
And to break that down, that architecture is specifically optimized for massive context windows.
Meaning it allows the model to read and analyze an enormous code base all at once without breaking a sweat. And the raw numbers we are seeing here are staggering.
They really are. Composer 2.5 is putting up benchmark scores that approach Anthropic's Opus 4.7 and OpenAI's GPT 5.5 on the top development leaderboards.
It represents nearly a 10% performance jump from their previous version. But the true story is the cost. An average development task on the Cursor Bench evaluation costs under $1 using Composer 2.5.
Under a single dollar.
If you run that exact same task on Opus 4.7 or GPT 5.5 at similar performance levels, you are paying up to $11. Wait, hold on. If OpenAI is charging $11 for that same benchmark, how is Cursor doing it for 90 cents?
Are they just using a vastly inferior, smaller model and hiding it behind clever prompting?
That is the question, isn't it?
Well, delivering near-frontier performance at a 90% discount is not magic, and it is not a trick. It is the result of immense hardware brute force.
Which is where things get crazy.
Cursor revealed that Composer 2.5 was partially trained on Colossus 2. That ties directly back to xAI's infrastructure.
Which consists of massive supercomputer clusters filled with tens of thousands of GPUs.
Furthermore, Cursor is actively training a larger model, internally dubbed SpaceX AI, utilizing 10 times more compute than what was used for Composer 2.5.
So we are witnessing a complete reshaping of the cost-to-performance ratio. When you give developers that level of capability for pennies on the dollar, you fundamentally change who gets to build software. You no longer need enterprise-level funding to brute force a complex application architecture.
It democratizes the entire process.
Let's zoom out and look at how this compute scale is actually rippling across the rest of the tech industry today. I know we have a massive wave of structural shifts to cover, so I will hand it over to the co-host desk for the broader industry movements.
We are definitely seeing major structural shifts across the board today, beginning with Meta. The company is executing a massive AI efficiency push.
I saw the numbers on this.
They are laying off up to 8,000 employees this week and freezing hiring for another 6,000 open roles. This represents a staggering reduction in human capital.
That is a massive shift in their workforce.
It is directly attributed to internal AI integration streamlining operations, fundamentally changing their organizational chart. Moving to enterprise infrastructure, OpenAI and Dell have announced a new partnership.
This is the Codex one, correct?
Exactly. They are partnering to run the Codex coding agent directly inside corporate data centers. This is a crucial development.
Because major corporations like banks or healthcare providers simply cannot send proprietary, highly sensitive code over cloud APIs.
Due to regulatory and security constraints, absolutely. Through this partnership, they can now connect Codex to their internal, highly secure enterprise systems by having Dell install the server hardware physically on-premise in their own basements.
That solves a massive security headache.
Now, in the realm of simulated environments, Odyssey has dropped two completely distinct world models in a single day. The first, Agora 1, pushes into real-time multiplayer territory.
Okay, how does that actually work in practice?
It allows multiple human or AI participants to interact inside the same physics-based simulation simultaneously. They are demonstrating this with a playable, GoldenEye-style multiplayer game where the environment reacts dynamically to every player.
That is incredible. And the second one?
The second model, Starchild 1, is an even more massive leap forward. It generates audio natively alongside its visuals.
So it is not just pasting sound over a finished video.
No, instead of layering sound effects on top of a video after it is generated, the model synthesizes the audio and the visual data at the exact same time. This makes it the industry's first real-time multimodal world model.
That's a huge technical milestone.
Looking ahead to consumer devices, Apple is radically revamping the standalone Siri app. This is slated to debut in iOS 27 at WWDC 2026 on June 8th.
Apple is always playing the long game with these integrations.
To differentiate itself in a very crowded market, Apple is leaning heavily into a privacy-first approach by introducing auto-deleting chat histories.
So you will be able to set your conversations to automatically vanish after a specific time period.
Which contrasts sharply with competitors who retain all conversation logs by default to train future models. Over in audio creation, Amazon is rolling out Alexa Podcasts.
This one caught my eye.
It functions as a custom podcast creator built into Alexa plus Smart A. It utilizes a Notebook LM-style architecture.
For those unfamiliar, that means you can feed the system raw text documents, and it dynamically generates a realistic back-and-forth audio conversation.
Between two synthetic AI hosts analyzing that exact text based on whatever subject you input.
Wow, that is going to change content consumption entirely.
Finally, Anthropic has finalized the acquisition of Stainless. This is the specialized startup that has been behind Anthropic's official software development kits and Model Context Protocol server tooling.
The Model Context Protocol being essentially the universal secure translator that lets an AI model talk to a company's local databases without exposing the entire system.
Precisely. Anthropic is absorbing the entire team previously responsible for building Claude's developer libraries.
You know, that last point about Anthropic is rich with irony. We have an entire industry loudly proclaiming that traditional human software development is essentially dead, replaced by autonomous coding agents.
And yet,
Yet, when a leading frontier lab like Anthropic needs to build out its foundational developer tools and SDKs, they do not just ask their own Claude Opus model to write the code, they go out and acquire a startup full of human engineers.
it really highlights the gap between the marketing narrative of AI autonomy and the reality of who is still laying the foundational architecture.
Moving on to today's trending AI tools, we have 7 major platforms seeing massive adoption. Let's walk through what they are doing and, more importantly, how they are actually being deployed right now.
Because the practical applications are where you really see the value.
First up is Composer 2.5, which we touched on earlier. This is Cursor's near-frontier, highly efficient in-house coding model.
And if you are an independent developer listening right now, this fundamentally changes your budget.
By bringing the cost per task down to under $1, solo developers can now afford to brute force complex architectures and iterate constantly. You no longer have to worry about bankrupting yourself on API calls just to prototype a new app.
It is a total game changer for indie devs.
Number 2 is Krea 2. This is Krea's brand new in-house image model, which has just hit general availability.
The speed and fidelity here are remarkable because of how it handles visual data generation.
The core use case is generating high-quality marketing and ad assets instantly. A marketing team can describe an entire seasonal campaign aesthetic, and Krea 2 will diffuse and output production-ready visual assets across multiple aspect ratios in seconds.
It completely bypasses the need for traditional stock photography or lengthy, expensive photo shoots.
Third on the list is Devin, which has just introduced a new auto-triage coding security feature equipped with long-term memory.
Security triage is notoriously difficult because you need to understand the historical context of a code base.
And Devin can now be deployed to maintain and secure massive legacy code bases without losing that context. It uses sophisticated vector databases to remember code logic from 10 years ago.
So it reads through millions of lines of old code, spots vulnerabilities, and suggests patches based on a deep contextual understanding of how the entire system was originally built.
Tool number 4 is VibePaper. Think of this as an infinite canvas that seamlessly blends image, video, and text generation.
The best use case here is brainstorming multi-format media campaigns in a single workspace.
You are not jumping between a text editor, an image generator, and a separate video tool. You place a brand's text outline on the canvas, drag an AI-generated video next to it, and iterate on the entire campaign's overall vibe holistically.
In real time, all on one screen. It is incredibly fluid.
Number 5 is simply called Floor Plan. This tool transforms raw text descriptions or basic reference images directly into 2D, 2.5D, and fully explorable 3D floor plans.
And to clarify, a 2.5D model is that isometric angled view. Think of playing a game like The Sims.
Oh, that is a great comparison.
It gives you a sense of depth and layout instantly without being a fully rendered 3D environment.
For the real estate and architecture sectors, this allows for incredibly rapid prototyping. Imagine walking a client onto an empty dirt lot, pulling out your tablet, typing modern brutalist office, and handing them a fully explorable 3D model right there.
Just to secure investment on the spot.
6th is Noteweave. This platform is designed to convert dense scientific research into executable production plans in a matter of hours.
Imagine feeding an entire Gordon Ramsay cookbook into a machine and having it spit out a minute-by-minute shift schedule for a 50-person kitchen staff.
That is a hilarious way to put it, but that is exactly what Noteweave does for science.
A biomedical company needing to operationalize a dense 400-page white paper on synthesizing a new compound can just feed it into the platform.
And Noteweave reads the science and outputs a step-by-step manufacturing timeline, complete with equipment requirements and daily operational schedules, turning theoretical science into a factory floor reality.
Finally, we have RankSpot.
This is a fully automated AI SEO agent, and we are not just talking about generating a draft text.
The use case here is researching, writing, optimizing, formatting, and publishing a corporate blog pipeline completely hands-free.
It actively identifies keyword gaps in the market, writes the content to match user search intent, and pushes it live to a content management system daily without a human ever having to click a publish button.
Looking at tools like Noteweave translating white papers into factory schedules, or RankSpot running an entire publication pipeline autonomously, reveals a profound shift.
It really does.
We are moving away from AI acting as a digital assistant that helps you complete a discrete task toward AI acting as an autonomous production pipeline that owns the entire workflow from conception to execution.
Taking a step back to look at everything we have covered in this deep dive, there is a central tension that is impossible to ignore.
There really is.
We are watching the architecture of the tech industry change in real time, and it leaves us with a critical, forward-looking question to consider.
It is all about the line between human and AI labor.
Exactly. We talked earlier about AI maintaining legacy code and building out our architectural floor plans. But here is something to chew on. If AI efficiency is driving thousands of layoffs at Meta, but AI labs like Anthropic still need to acquire human teams to build their developer tools, where exactly is the line between human and AI labor right now?
And what happens in 2 years when platforms like Cursor become capable of autonomously writing the foundational software development kits for the next generation of AI?
Who actually controls the underlying code when the AI builds its own tools?
That is the defining question of the next era of development. The landscape is shifting under our feet every single day, and the boundary between human intuition and machine execution is constantly being redrawn. Staying intensely curious and critically examining these developments is the only way to navigate it.
Be sure to follow and share the show so you never miss an update on how these tools and industry shifts are evolving. See you in the next episode.